Let's see if this works. Okay. There we go. Okay. Hello, we are live right now. And we have Hurricane Beryl, which is now barreling towards the Yucatan right now. Cozumel, you can see they're in part of the eye. Here, fix this. Alright, so the center of the storm is making landfall on Cozumel right now. This is roughly the entire eye of it. Kind of hard to see this southeastern side. It's non-existent at this point. Um, it's weakening a lot. It's had weakened quite a bit from its Cat 5 peak, and its Cat 4 really close past to Jamaica. But now it is weakening. It is currently officially down to a Category 2, as per the latest NHC updates. Um, let's take a look at some recon data to confirm that. We don't really have anything recent to show us. Yeah, it may even be a little bit weaker actually. It was 971 millibars and the aircraft showed 973 millibars. So maybe there was I don't know why they went so low on it. All right. So let's take a look at this on what they've said on their latest advisory. This was an hour ago. Uh, Beryl is nearing landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula this morning. After unexpectedly intensifying some last night against continued shear, Beryl has plateaued or filled a bit. The last few fixes from the Air Force Reserve reconnaissance mission indicated that the pressure rose 9 millibars, while the peak 700 millibar wind in the final northeastern leg of Beryl were down to 102 knots with lower SFMR values. In addition, the aircraft was no longer reporting an eye wall. Ooh, okay. And inner core from radar out of Cancun, Mexico has become more degraded. On satellite, the hurricane has also become more amorphous, with the lack of an eye signature on infrared imagery, and the evidence of southerly shear continuing to undercut its outflow. The initial intensity of this advisory was adjusted to 95 knots, which is still higher than satellite intensity estimates out of respect for the earlier recon data. Satellite estimates show it's awful at this point. Right here, I mean, there's no eye, thankfully. There's a new little convective burst that's been to the southwest. A lot of lightning activity. That's quite surprising. A lot of lightning that occurred over land earlier. Thankfully, it's kind of died out. It's died out to what it was before, at least. You can see that pink is where like the strongest part of the eye wall is. Oh, there it is now. Okay. Yep. So the eye wall is already approaching land, just north of Tulum, and you can see how the western side just degraded a bunch. It's not really any of those yellows. It's more of a greenish yellow color. It's not the solid yellow it was before, indicating that it has weakened. And also Cozumel, they're still getting battered by it. So they're going to get battered by it for quite some time. And then they're going to get they are being hit by the northeastern side at this point. This is going to be the strongest winds. If there are 100 plus mile an hour winds, this is where it would be. Whereas the rest of this is just hurricane force, which is very bad still. But thankfully, thankfully it looks like the western side is now falling apart. Yeah, anything to the north really has all the rain. There isn't really much on the south other than this thin band. So yeah, just places north of Tulum are the ones getting the worst rainfall rates. I don't know how much rain at this point. But first, I'd like to actually take a look at some cameras right now. These are all in the path of it. I movers. I think that's right over here. volume down, it's a little bit loud. Anyways, let's look at the discussion continuing. The hurricane appears to now be moving more west-northwestward this morning, estimated at 285 degrees at 13 knots. Beryl should maintain this west-northwest heading as it crosses the Yucatan Peninsula today and merges over the Gulf of Mexico by tonight. Thereafter, the subtropical ridge north of Beryl that has been steering it for many days now will have become eroded in the western Gulf of Mexico from a long wave trough located over the central U.S. In addition, an upper-level low seen retrograding westward in the Gulf of Mexico could also impart some poleward steering in the western Gulf of Mexico. How sharply Beryl turns poleward from 36 to 72 hours will likely depend on the storm's vertical path. With a more vertically deep system, more likely to feel the ridge weakness in the upper level flow. In fact, that scenario has been highlighted by the latest few cycles of the ECMWF or Euro ensembles, which show stronger solutions on the north side of the track envelope. The overall guidance this cycle has also made a notable shift northward and is a little bit slower than earlier, and the NHC forecast has been shifted in that direction, quite close to the consensus aid TVCN. However, it is not quite as far north as the latest ECMWF or GFS tracks, and further adjustments in that direction may be necessary later today. So let's show that. Here's what they mean right here. It's made a significant shift toward more north. Keep in mind the storm's right here, so it's a lot more north of what ensembles were predicting it to be. So that is going to continue moving on this like northward track, and it could go more and more westward. That's what the National Hurricane Center thinks. But you know, all along the Texas coastline, they need to be watching this closely, because no matter where it hits, it's going to be the northern side that gets the worst storm surge, worst wind. So I mean, still, I mean, even if it hits the Mexico-Texas border, it's going to be all onshore wind for Texas. And yeah, the further north it goes, the more areas at risk along the coast. Yeah, I mean, it should stay mostly within this path right here on what it can do. I don't really expect anything to go for Louisiana. I don't think it's going to make a hard turn like that, just due to the high pressure right here just steering the whole thing away. Alright, let's take a look at the third one. The intensity forecast for the next 24 hours is straightforward, as a small core of Beryl should quickly weaken over the Yucatan after it moves inland, likely into a tropical storm before it emerges over the Gulf of Mexico. However, it is after this period where the intensity forecast becomes tricky. It will likely take a bit of time for Beryl's convective structure to recover in the Gulf of Mexico, and intensity there will still be some residue, and initially there will be some residual southerly shear. However, both the GFS and Euro-based ship's guidance shows a shear dropping under 10 knots after 48 hours. That is really good for development. Okay. While the storm traverses 29 to 30 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures. Such an environment should favor strengthening, and the raw model output from the GFS and Euro suggests significant deepening as Beryl approaches the coastline of northeastern Mexico and South Texas. Somewhat surprisingly, the hurricane regional models are more subdued and suggest less intensification this cycle, but these models have been oscillating between stronger and weaker solutions. The latest NHC intensity forecast will show a bit more intensification than the prior advisory, which is on the high end of the intensity guidance, but more in line with the expected favorable environment as Beryl approaches landfall. Now remember, users are reminded that the average NHC track error at day 3 is around 100 miles, and it remains too soon to pinpoint where the largest impacts will be. However, watches for portions of northeastern Mexico and South Texas will likely be required later today. Wow, okay. And here is the current forecast. It is 110 miles per hour right now. Here, I'll pull up the forecast cone. It's 110 miles per hour right now. Expected to quickly weaken to 70 miles an hour, then 60, and then undergo gradual intensification to around an 85 mile per hour mid-range Cat 1. Keep in mind this could be lower, this could be higher. We may see a Cat 2, we may see a low-range Cat 1. Too far out to tell. But yeah, watches, mainly tropical storm watches or hurricane watches will likely be needed later today. And then those will eventually be upgraded to hurricane watches and then hurricane warnings. Let's take a look at the public advisory. This will show the threats. Here we go. So, the wind, hurricane conditions are expected in the hurricane warning area in the Yucatan Peninsula later this morning. Winds are expected to first reach tropical storm strength shortly, making outside preparations difficult or dangerous. Yeah, you should not really be preparing at this time. You should be hunkered down in the eastern Yucatan Peninsula. And then we got the storm surge. Storm surge could raise water levels by as much as 4 to 6 feet above ground level in areas of onshore wind along the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula within the hurricane warning area, and by as much as 1 to 3 feet of ground level along the west coast of the Yucatan at the tropical storm warning area. Near the coast, the surge will be accompanied by large and destructive waves. And then, of course, the rainfall totals 4 to 6 inches, and localized areas of 10 inches rain across the Yucatan Peninsula, and 4 to 8 inches with locally higher amounts in parts of northeastern Mexico and South Texas. And then large swells generated by Beryl are currently impacting portions of the coast of Cuba, the Cayman Islands, and the Yucatan Peninsula. Swells are expected to reach eastern Mexico and the Gulf Coast of the U.S. by late today. These swells are expected to cause life-threatening surf and rip currents. So let's take a look at the why the northern side is going to be the strongest out of this. As I say a lot, it's because of onshore flow. Right now, you'll notice that the storm is pushing. If I can get my drawing tool yet, you can see the winds are blowing onshore roughly like this, and then they're strongest right around the eye wall. So that is pushing water onshore. Whereas the south side, where Tulum is, they're in the lucky side. They are pulling water away from the coast, which means that there's less storm surge in it. They should mostly be over for the threat of storm surge, but they're in the eye wall of it, so they are getting the heavy winds. Yeah, you were able to see the southern side is getting completely destroyed, and southwestern side is now degrading just because it's made landfall. Or, I mean, it's moved over land. Let's take a look at the live stream. You can see Playa del Carmen still getting some of the heavy winds. You can see all the trees moving around everywhere, really. Anyways, it's hard to tell exactly where the center is. It should be past Cozumel a bit. This is roughly the general location of the eye. Kinda hard to tell, but it should have moved past Cozumel a bit. Alright. So yeah, 4 to 6 feet of storm surge is expected along the northern side of wherever it's making landfall. Which basically means Playa del Carmen, they're expected to get 4 to 6 feet. Puerto Morelos, Alfredo, Vibonfil, Isla Mujeres, this whole area. Basically, whatever's under a hurricane warning could be getting 4 to 6 feet of storm surge. So yeah, including Cancun. And then for the tropical storm warning, it's a little bit less. It's about 1 to 3 feet. That's because, let me see if I can actually show it. Alright. And not exactly the best on here, but this will kind of show it. Yeah, so here's roughly where the storm is right now. Just a rough idea. Wherever the arrows are blowing on land, that is going to be causing a lot of storm surge. And then you'll see the areas just south of it that are blowing water away from the coast. Those are areas that will have less storm surge. Shouldn't really get a lot, thankfully, just south of it, but the northern side is going to have the worst. And then you can also see how the clouds don't really extend that far out from the center of the storm. It's not super large. They extend really about, some areas only like 70 miles just due to the shear, and some areas 130 miles. Not really large. Anyways, let's take a look at the wind field of the storm as of the 5 a.m. advisory Atlantic Standard Time. At this point in time, it was showing hurricane force winds occurring on Cozumel, roughly. And then the damaging winds, that's what this greenish color is, of 60 miles an hour. And then more inland, Playa del Carmen. And then you got tropical storm force winds occurring further inland. This is, of course, moving further along the path. The hurricane force winds should die out over land, thankfully, and then it will just be damaging force winds that are continuing to move across land. And then, of course, the tropical storm force winds are going to move through land. I mean, it should be a straightforward path, mostly, on where the winds are going to be going across the Yucatan. Here, let's take a look at the probabilities of these winds. Alright, let me remove this. Alright, kind of hard to tell. Yeah, I mean, it's... I know it already shows this right here. It's a little bit different than the probabilities of hurricane force winds. But as you can see, there's really a less than 5% probability you're getting hurricane force winds further inland. And then if you go to the coast of southeastern Texas and northeastern Mexico, you can see the probabilities building again. And they're 5 to 10% just east of Brownsville. Alright, and then let's pull up damaging winds. You can see that they're expected to go further inland across the Yucatan Peninsula. That's expected. And then you'll see the probabilities building across southeastern Texas and northeastern Mexico. Brownsville is in a 10% now. Whereas the hurricane force winds, they're really not in a probability. And then Corpus Christi's in the 5%, Kingsville is in the 5%. Wherever Port Mayaca is, should be, or Port Lavaca, sorry, they're roughly in a 5% chance. This is damaging winds. And then here is the tropical storm force winds. You can see how they're expected to just continue going across the coast there of the Yucatan, and then they're going to build in probabilities again. You know, once again for southeastern Texas, northeastern Mexico. Brownsville is in the, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% chance of tropical storm force winds, so it's looking kind of likely that they're going to get it. This is 3 days out, so that kind of probability is pretty high. Corpus Christi is in the 30% chance. And you'll see further up northward, Houston's in a 5%, San Antonio's in a 10%, Nuevo Laredo's in the 10%, Monterrey's in the 5%, and then even Tampico's in a 5%. Thankfully, it looks like it's staying away from the people in Louisiana. It's heading mainly towards the Texas-Mexico border, maybe a little bit more northward of that. Alright, and then here's the potential rainfall out of the system. And they haven't updated that, but here's the U.S. forecast of rainfall. Anywhere in this light green color is 1 to 2 inches of rain. This dark green color is going to be 2 to 4 inches of rain. And then the yellow is going to be 4 to 6 inches of rain. You can see Corpus Christi is in that, and Laredo is in the 2 to 4 inches. And this more orangish color is going to be 6 to 8 inches of rain, which does include Brownsville. They are expected to be one of the targets of rainfall. Of course, wherever the center goes, that's going to be the highest rainfall. And let's take a look at the flash flooding potential that is out. You can see there's a slight risk for Houston, San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, Laredo. Let's pull up the Weather Prediction Center to show that. Of course, you see on day 3, this is going to be on Sunday. There is a slight risk, mainly for the far southern Texas, and then extends more northward on Monday, and then more northeast on Tuesday. If I pull up the interactive page, you can see exactly what areas are in what risk. So I'll show that more closely. Sunday, Brownsville's in the basically, if your city's in the slight risk, you have a 15% chance of seeing flash flooding kind of close by. And then you can see further northward, there's the marginal risk, which is a 5% chance. Here's the next day. It extends a lot further northeast. For the further north and northeast, San Antonio's in that risk. Houston's almost in it. And then we have Tuesday, which Houston is in, the slight risk. We have San Antonio in it. And then let's actually pull up the Storm Prediction Center, which will show us a chance of tornadoes and whatnot. They do have a marginal risk for southeastern Texas, which is expected. It's mainly Tropical Cyclone Beryl is expected to be near the lower Texas Gulf Coast by late Sunday into Monday morning, with dew points in the 70s being advected onshore and the low-level shear strengthening in the northeastern quadrant of the tropical cyclone. Some tornado risk is possible, mainly Sunday night into Monday morning. We will have another stream at that time as well to cover the system. Alright, and let's see what else there is. Let's pull up the rainfall totals. Again, right here. You can see what areas are going to get the highest amounts. There's a lot of areas over here with 7-ish inches of rain or higher. A lot of areas that are going to get the rain. Basically anywhere in the red, purples, they're getting pretty high amounts of rainfall. Above 2 inches-ish. And then that red color is getting around 3 to 4 inches. Alright. Thankfully, it looks like that the system should be mostly gone by Wednesday. It's still just going to be a whole mass of rain. That's mainly the problem. Alright. You know, you don't have to have strong winds to be a flood threat. Let's take a look. Still heavy rain. Still strong winds going on in Cancun, Playa del Carmen. Yeah, you can see all the rain blowing at the camera in Cancun. It's not falling vertically down, it's more horizontal, blowing at the camera. Yep, here is the rough depiction of the eye wall. Roughly like that. So the center is just west of Cozumel. It is in between Cozumel and the mainland Yucatan. Should make landfall just north of Akumal. I believe that the National Hurricane Center page will update when it does make landfall. I do not know though. It's about 90 minutes until they updates and posts a new advisory. Let's take a look at the other system right now, Tropical Depression Aleda. Not really expected to do much. It's going to be out to sea. And it should just be weakening from here on out. Yeah, not really any hazards affecting land. Alright, so yeah, it's expected to dissipate within the next 40 hours. Thankfully that season's been inactive, but the Atlantic has been quite active already. We've had Chris so far, and it's only July. Yeah, quite busy. Alright, what else is going on? I can show. Alright, here are the key messages basically to understand with the storm over the next couple of days. Hurricane force winds, dangerous storm surge, and heavy rainfall are beginning to occur across the Yucatan Peninsula within the hurricane warning area. Residents there should shelter in place through the passage of these life-threatening conditions today. Yeah, so I believe most people are either asleep or just staying in their home. They should be hunkered down for a couple hours until the storm passes. And then there is an increasing risk of strong winds, storm surge, and heavy rainfall in portions of northeastern Mexico and southern Texas late this weekend. Interested in these areas should closely monitor the progress of Beryl and updates to the forecast. Hurricane and tropical storm watches will likely be issued later today. Okay, so they mentioned the possibility of hurricane watches later today. It's going to be interesting and see what counties and what parts of northeastern Mexico are in it. Rip currents could cause life-threatening beach conditions beginning late today and continuing through the weekend across much of the Gulf Coast. Alright, let's go back to the live cameras. You can see Playa del Carmen there. Moving around. Thankfully, they've have a lot of shutters on the buildings. Really good to see people actually taking precautions on this. It's still 5:30 a.m. for them, so not much light. We can't really see much. Alright, now you can see this area of moderate to heavy rainfall over Cozumel, now moving into Playa del Carmen, which they should be getting heavier rain pretty soon. Isla Mujeres, right up over here, is getting some pretty heavy rainfall right now. You can actually see there have been some thunderstorms and in between Cuba and the Yucatan, just on how strong and just how heavy the rainfall rates are. Anyways, you can see this convective burst that's been going on to the southwest of the storm. Good thing about this is now it should start degrading on satellite pretty soon now that it's actually over land. We'll start to see that come down. And yeah, now you can somewhat see the eye on satellite somewhere, not really that far north. Realistically, it's somewhere in between this area the eye should be, and the center of the storm is somewhere in between Cozumel and Nacamal. Yeah, as you can see the weather radar, the eye is not this far north really. The entire system is roughly centered somewhere in this area. As you can see the banding that's actually been trying to form on the southern side, southeastern side. Just that shear's really preventing it from doing much at all. It's really lopsided on the northern side, which is pretty good because this area doesn't have land north of Yucatan, so they aren't getting impacts from it. And south of the Yucatan and Belize are not really getting much at all. Which part of Belize, I believe, is under a. No, no, okay. But they are under a tropical storm watch. But you can see some areas in the hurricane watch area are likely not even getting tropical storm force winds, which is really good. The problem is areas on the northern side. Yeah, here you can see the overall structure of the system. Wind shear is completely shredding that southern side. And so as it moves over the Yucatan, it's going to be pretty bad for the storm structure at least. And then it's going to finally try and reorganize pretty gradually as it goes towards. Now it looks like that's still the Texas-Mexico border. But what has happened in the cone now is the National Hurricane Center is predicting a Texas landfall. Earlier it was more south and then curving into Texas. Now the National Hurricane Center is predicting a Texas landfall. Keep in mind the storm is predicted to make landfall in a large area. It can make a landfall just southeast of San Fernando, and it could make landfall all the way up towards Baymont, Port Arthur, south of there. So Houston is still in the cone. Keep in mind if the storm really wants to, it could take that northern track and curve towards Houston. And it can just as likely just keep going a little bit south of Brownsville in northeastern Mexico. That's why it's the cone of uncertainty, so impacts could occur still for parts of Louisiana. It's mainly going to be on the northern side of the system, though. Northern and eastern side. So if it were to make landfall somewhere near Houston, the strongest impacts would be to the east, and that would include Louisiana. But it could just as well go all the way down south of Brownsville and give the worst impacts for Brownsville. An overall less populated area, just south of Brownsville, would get the worst of it. Alright, let's go back to live cameras. Yeah, Playa del Carmen has I'd say roughly 15 minutes or so until they get some more heavy rainfall. Yep, it's about to go over the town pretty soon. So let's take a look at some satellite imagery. This is the mesosector imagery, so really up to date. Oh yeah, you can see this new convective burst. This is basically just more thunderstorms, more heavy rainfall. Actually occurring on the western side, which is actually over land. That's quite surprising. Yeah, the system's very lopsided. You can see the thunderstorms I was talking about earlier, or rain bands forming on the eastern side. Thankfully, these are most likely going to go away from land. These are just going to continue following around the system and potentially fizzle out. We also got some new convective burst occurring just over the northern tip of the Yucatan. And we also have these thunderstorms, of course, occurring in between the Yucatan and Cuba. Thankfully, those don't look like they will impact land. Thankfully, it's been moving so far north that some of these rain bands aren't impacting anywhere. Maybe for parts of Cuba, the very far western tip of Cuba. Not really anywhere else. Alright, now remember, if you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the chat. I'll do my best to answer your impacts, your threats, give you an idea on it. Oh yeah, we also have... Wait, is it no longer there? Oh wow, okay, they dropped Invest 96L. That's quite interesting. Okay. Alright, so Invest 96L. This is, well, what was Invest 96L is just southeast of Jamaica. The main area where the system could form would be in the Bay of Campeche, roughly in this area. I know that a lot of storms seem to be going towards that area. I don't know why. We've gotten quite a bit so far. I believe this would be the fourth system. Alright, let's take a look at Playa del Carmen, what they're getting right now. See this rain band? There we go. Now it should be over them. Kind of hard to tell. But you can see how gusty the shower is. I mean, it's really inside of the eye of it, so, or eye wall-ish. Alright, so we should be nearing landfall within the next hour, maybe even less. It's hard to exactly pinpoint where the center of the storm is based on this radar imagery. I mean, overall, it appears that, the structure was roughly like this. It has now moved more so like this. That would indicate it's mostly over land, but I don't think so yet. National Hurricane Center hasn't posted anything on it. Anyways, on the latest National Hurricane Center forecast, they are predicting an 85-mile-per-hour landfall in southeastern Texas, which would mean we'd have to do another stream. They want it to make landfall 1 a.m. Monday Central Daylight Time. Which, if that is the case, we will be doing another stream. Then, I've been doing a lot of streams lately. Three so far. I mean, this is the third. That would be the fourth. And then we should have a break from the tropics, which is nice. Been wanting that for a while. Do you actually want to take a look at this? How good their radar is, just as a little check thingy. Alright, not the best. Anyways, if we do get some sort of update at 7 a.m. from the National Hurricane Center, I will pull that up. Maybe they say it's made landfall. Too early to tell. Alright, let's pull up the recon and see when they're flying next. I don't really have anything. Alright. Yeah, a plane will be flying in 2 hours and 45 minutes into the storm. Alright, I do want to pull up some more data on the storm in terms of where it's going and stuff like that. Yeah, as you can see, based off of this, where models want the system to go, if it will allow me to. Yep, there we go. So, you'll notice that it's more north of where the National Hurricane Center cone is. National Hurricane Center cone is roughly like this. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit shift more eastward as well, northeastward of where the center will go. It's too far out to tell right now still, but the National Hurricane Center cone is on the south part of that. Yeah, a weak tropical system or a remnant low headed over towards Arkansas, northwestern Louisiana can't be ruled out. So, stuff like heavy rainfall, that'd basically be the worst that they should get out of it. Maybe a tornado threat. I'm hearing lots of wind on the stream right now. Oops, my bad. My faults. I do not know which camera actually has the... Which cameras actually have the noise on, the audio. I'm guessing Playa del Carmen. Oh yeah, based off of radar imagery, it does look like it may have made landfall. It's still too far out to tell. The center should be somewhere roughly in here. It's very difficult to tell based off of radar imagery when it's not a well-defined eye. Which is good in this case, that means it's weaker. But yeah, it's making landfall very close to a major hurricane. So I mean, it's just 5 miles per hour below, maybe a little bit weaker than that. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 105 miles per hour. Alright, yeah, based off of this infrared imagery, it shows that it's probably made a landfall. As you can see, there are vertical heat towers or convective bursts. These occur around the eye, around the center of the storm, so just showing that would show it would be in between, or it would be on land, actually. So this is more likely where the eye is. It's kind of cleared out a little bit just because of the new convective burst around it. It's more clearly showing out where the center of the storm is or where the eye is. Of course, in this case scenario, the eye isn't really defined that well. Alright, I just lost my mouse for whatever reason. Okay, I don't know what just happened. I can't see my mouse anymore. Oh, there it is. Okay, now it's come back. Alright. Sorry about that. Anyways, we should be able to start seeing the storm pretty soon on visible. No? Okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense. It's still pretty dark. I can see things are starting to lighten up just slowly. I can't see anything on that. We're gonna just have to rely on infrared imagery. Yeah, it's mainly that new convective burst down here on the western side and the northern side that is helping us determine where the center is. So the system likely has, or potentially has made landfall. It's still too hard to say right now. No update has been given. Yeah, just based off of that, it shows that the center's roughly there, which would be overland. At this point, would it surprise me? Just given radar appearance. So I do think that the system has likely made landfall. If any of you have any questions, please let me know. Honestly, I'm a little bit tired right now. I only got like 5 hours of sleep, so I'm not my best right now. Oh, jeez, okay. That wasn't good. Sorry about that, some sort of computer stuff. Alright. So yeah, I mean, it appears that things are gonna gradually start getting better for most areas. At least at the landfall site. Um, it appears that there is still a strong northeastern quadrant right here. This area would likely contain the potentially 100-mile-an-hour plus winds, but this should be weakening pretty soon, if not already. It's just a bunch of rain at this point, and gusty winds. Mainly on the northern side of the storm, they're getting the worst of it, or worst of the rain at least. Yeah, the center of the storm doesn't seem to be getting all that much, around the eye wall area. It's kind of hard to tell, but it does look like it is moving inland at this point. Yeah, I mean, it is hard to tell right now, just based off the banding. It's hard to tell when a storm doesn't have a structured eye wall. Here, if we follow this, yeah, I mean, that works. So yeah, I do personally think it has made landfall. Now it's just going to be moving inland, weakening. Main question is how much it weakens by. This is going to be the main last variable in the forecast. We don't know how much it will weaken. If it weakens a lot, if the core is completely shredded, that will mean a weaker landfall in northeastern Mexico or southeastern Texas. Maybe 75 miles per hour, just a minimal hurricane. Or even less, maybe just a high-end tropical storm, 65 to 70 miles per hour, if this really knocks it down. If it doesn't, this thing could go quite a bit higher. If it's still a hurricane by the time it's past the area, then a major can't really be ruled out. And wherever it goes, wherever it makes landfall. Keep in mind, though, the longer it takes to make a landfall, and the more northeast the system goes, the stronger it will get, as it has more time over favorable conditions. So if it went towards the Houston area, that would mean that it's stronger than if it went south of Brownsville, just based on time. See, this forecast line right here shows 85 miles per hour, and that's at landfall. So if the storm was over here, that'd be weaker, because landfall would have to be with this one, which is 80 miles per hour. Or actually, I think that's 75. Here, I'm actually going to double check. Ah, okay, 70, 80, 85, okay. Yeah, the National Hurricane Center is forecasting it to be 60 miles per hour by the time it's over water. That's the most likely scenario, so that would be roughly an 85 mile per hour landfall, maybe 90. Keep in mind, Cat 1, Cat 2 is mainly what is expected. Major hurricane landfall can't be ruled out, but it's just too far out to tell. Right, no update recently on the National Hurricane Center. Let's take a look at some of the live cameras. See, more daylight now, finally. Really hoping no one's out and about right now. Rip current, storm surge, all really bad. Thankfully, though, since these places are more north, Cancun's more north on the landfall sites, it isn't getting as much storm surge, but they are getting the heavy rainfall out of the system. Yep, alright. Isle Mujeres got a gust of 38 miles per hour. That was an hour ago. And a gust of 40 miles per hour appears to be a little bit earlier. Maybe. I think so. Yep, you see gusts of 38 miles per hour in Cancun, 29. Not really many weather stations closer to the center. This one right here showing 8-mile-an-hour gusts. That was an hour ago. That's a little bit too early. Sorry, too low. Sorry. Anyways, based off of these new convective bursts, it does appear that it probably has made landfall, especially this new one up here. Now it's showing it's trying to get a little bit of an eye. See right here? Sorry. Pretty clear where it's... not pretty clear, but based off of infrared satellite, the mid-level eye of the system, it does appear it's made landfall. And it does appear that the worst of it on the eastern side and northeastern side are probably over land at this point. So winds are going down. Alright. Daylight's coming for that area. You'd see all the boards just put on as for shutters for the buildings. I'm glad they played it safe. You can never be too careful with a hurricane. Anyways, as you can see on the bottom left, there isn't anyone out on the beach, which is good. I do want to end here pretty soon so I can get some sleep. Yeah, just know that conditions are going to gradually get better, for parts of Cancun, now that the eye is probably over lands right now. That means their wind is going to be decreasing gradually. It's going to take some time for them to get out of the tropical storm force. I do want to talk about the next stream that will be done on the system, since it's pretty clear that it's going to be either making landfall in the United States or making a hurricane landfall in Mexico. Those are the main two requirements. So now that that is pretty certain, it's mainly going to be the timing of the stream. National Hurricane Center wants say 2 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time landfall on Monday. That's going to be pretty late, but I can do it. More of the team will be available then. Other than in this stream, I'm the only one up. And that will be our next stream. Should be quite interesting. It may occur early morning on Monday. It's hard to tell, just because it's still 3 days out, 72 hours out from eventually making landfall. So who knows? It all depends on the forward speed and how much more to the north it goes. I mean, on this cone right here, you have a large area of where the system could be. If it's all the way over here, at that point, it has a lot of time to make a landfall. Oops, did not mean to do that. It has a lot of time to make a landfall near Houston. And then if it's on the other side of that, it could be making landfall. Oh my god, okay, let me redraw that. It's on the other side of the cone. If it's on that other side of the cone, it could be making landfall before 2 a.m. This is going to be the 2 p.m. Forecast right here. So it could be making landfall at around 4 p.m. Who knows? This is all Atlantic Standard Time, by the way. Timing. It's just, it is too far out to tell exactly what time. It should make landfall in the general vicinity of overnight Saturday or Sunday. Overnight Sunday. That should be the main time of landfall. Is anyone in the chat? Does anyone have any questions? Alright, doesn't seem like it. Anyways, I did want to thank you all so much for watching. It should overall get better from here. Of course, the western Yucatan, Merida are going to deteriorate pretty soon. Overall, the landfall site hurricane force winds should start lowering pretty soon. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next stream, likely overnight Sunday. Goodbye.